This is a tough review for me to write. I am a fan of Gearbox as well as Dan O'Bannon's franchise, Alien. Both of these brands have had quite the influence in my life. Borderlands showed me that an RPG element in an FPS can actually work and doesn't have to take itself too seriously, even though a lot of other people did. Alien showed me that the right person in the wrong place can still make a difference, even though the odds were against them. Another thing that both of these brands showed when I was a kid was quality and true passion. Unfortunately, most recent installments in the Alien and Gearsoft franchises have not been particularly well, and Alien's Colonial Marines is a great example of that decline. I played the game way back in 2014, and I finished it. I gave it a fair shake, and I couldn't stand how bad it was, and I desperately tried to find things that were good about it. It actually made me wince at a lot of the technical issues and made me feel sick whenever I got into combat because of how janky and broken it was. I do my best to look at things from all sides, and after playing this unholy disaster again, I am reminded as to why I hated it. I couldn't even finish it on my second go-around. I have played plenty of bad games in my time as a gamer. This isn't a middle-of-the-road or not my cup of tea kind of perspective. When something just isn't my thing, I acknowledge that and accept it. But when something is just poorly put together and it's apparent that the developers just didn't put their all into it, it's disappointing. And like I have insinuated already, Alien's Colonial Marines is very disappointing. It may be late news now, but after 7 years of this game being out, I want to report as to why this thing needs to be talked about and why it should not be allowed to happen again. Gearbox and Sega have had plenty of years to do something with the game that they released, and unfortunately for you, and especially me, nothing has really been done. With a game like this, you would think updates or patches would have been released in order to make improvements on the engine and the all-around quality of the game. I hate to say that no such actions have been taken. It is still as buggy and painful to look at as it did in 2014. And yes, I understand that it was released in 2013, but I didn't get my hands on it initially until the following year for $1, and I still have buyer's remorse. So let's wade through the jank, keep an eye on our motion trackers, and kill some mostly threatening Xenos. The unfortunate thing about this game is that it is practically gift-wrapped when it comes to story. You've got an amazing tale to follow up on, good characters to look into, and a truly interesting environment to explore. Yes, this can be a daunting task, but it also provides a good foundation. Aliens is endeared by many as one of the best sci-fi action/horror movies out there. It has personality, atmosphere, great pacing, and excellent antagonists. It is no wonder that it is a classic. A lot of time was invested into that movie. Aliens Colonial Marines story, however, feels rushed and messily put together to say the least. You play as a Marine named Winter. You and your band of Marines are responding to a distress call from Higgs, one of the last survivors of the Marine squad that was sent to LV-426 with Ellen Ripley. Now, playing as the crew who goes back to pick up the pieces from the previous Alien honestly sounds awesome. But it is significantly less awesome when you learn that the very crew that you are working with hardly has any personality whatsoever. The only character names I could really remember throughout the game was really Bella, O'Neill, and Keyes. The main reason for that was because they pissed me off the most. The dialogue these characters have and the decisions they make throughout the game is like something that a middle schooler would come up with. Keyes blows things up just to blow things up, friends and family included. This guy throws a grenade at a stack of missiles and yells, "Check this out," when he sees two aliens on the said missiles. He even blows himself up when a chest burster comes out of him while you and him are in an airlock tube trying to escape to another ship. O'Neill has some of the cringiest dialogues with other characters, and his AI teed me off majorly. Bella, you know what? How about this? You find her in a sealed-up room with a face hugger on the ground and states that she is perfectly fine, even though she admits that the thing was wrapped around her friggin' head. What do you think is going to happen? Trust me, it doesn't take a hyper-intellectual to figure it out. Even if you haven't even seen the movies, it's pretty darn obvious. On top of that, the characters, you included, have already seen what happens to people who are captured by the xenomorphs. So it frustrates me to my core when they just ignore it for a couple hours throughout the game. It isn't until the Bishop cyborg they have, who actually has more personality than the whole crew, just tells her up front, you are going to die. That she or anyone actually even cares. Oh, and let's not forget that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation has PMCs going after you, trying to kill you and your whole crew to cover up the company's mess and experiments. These guys are barely given any kind of characterization, and they serve as just another faction for you to shoot, because first-person shooters. The story is full of inconsistencies and lazily thrown in plot points. It felt as if the story was written in a matter of a month or less. Yes, you do get to see LV-426. You get to see some iconic environments from the Aliens movie and learn the fates of some of the characters from the film. But it truly doesn't matter when these environments and locations are barely even used, or at least used properly. It pains me to say this because, again, I have a lot of love and respect for Gearbox and the Alien franchise. Just to add salt to the wound, this is the official canon sequel to the Aliens movie. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. That wasn't just sunk into me. It was jabbed into me like a hot poker by the devil himself. That is a scar that will not be leaving me for some time. To say the least, the gameplay in Aliens Colonial Marines is very basic. At its core, it is a corridor shooter with some outside elements. That's about it. You will be shooting aliens about 40% of the time and then humans for the rest of the time. Pretty sure this was called Aliens Colonial Marines, not Call of Duty Weyland-Yutani. There are some good things, however. For one, you get to customize your weapons and level up throughout the campaign. You even get to see the different kinds of weapons Marines have available to them in this universe. And to say the least, it's all pretty cool. They all have their uses and non-uses. The aliens had some variety, which made some scenarios at least genuinely interesting. And I'll give them this. The sound effects of the weapons and aliens were actually well put together and supported the source material. Finding legendary weapons throughout the campaign was pretty cool too. Great callbacks to the movie. It's obvious that these developers love the Aliens movie, but this is unfortunately where most of my praise is going to stop, because the rest of what you are getting out of this package is unfinished, to say the least. The shooting in this game is not that satisfying thanks to how the combat unfolds. You carry 3 weapons in total, 2 primaries and a pistol. You also get a motion tracker in order to track the aliens and your objectives. But this was useless most of the time since aliens mostly just charge headfirst into you during combat. More on that later. My major gripe about this is that when you're shooting something, it's not guaranteed that you are going to hit something unless you're standing right in front of them, using a shotgun or a precision-based weapon. I would find myself aiming down the sights of my rifle, and it would sway in the worst way whenever I am about to shoot a target, and I would miss. And when I got used to that and made sure that the sights were aligned, I learned that it didn't really matter, because I would still manage to hit targets even if my sights were off. This takes some of the skill requirement out of the game. This makes it to where it's really based on luck or the gun's random spray pattern that you will hit anything. This was frustrating to say the least, and made me need to shut the game down a couple of times since I would die thanks to me missing my shot and not realizing that it was practically based on RNG at mid to long ranges. Enemy AI is meant to challenge you or at least give you a thrill, right? Well, hate to say it, the xenomorphs of all things in this game are a pale comparison to how they are represented in the Aliens movie. Throughout the whole Alien series, xenomorphs are seen as tough, intelligent, and apex predators. They will use whatever slimy tactics they have available to get to their prey and either eliminate them or capture them to save them for later. These aliens literally just run up to you and start flailing around like maniacs. I had more than several occurrences where the alien AI just got stuck on a wall and I couldn't get past them thanks to them blocking the way. Something similar can be said about the Marine AI. They are usually either in the way, blocking my shots, and whenever they are in the midst of a fight, they hardly do any damage to other enemies. They also went down without too much of a fight most of the time. I hated watching that, and so will you. O'Neill even has a smart gun throughout a good portion of the game, and still doesn't manage to do that much damage at all. And don't get me started on the Weyland Yutani PMCs. They are your cookie-cutter dumb soldier AI that you get to shoot and get ammo and health pickups from. They are basically ammo/health bags that can barely manage to shoot you back. Yeah, so great. You also know that you are in for a fantastic time when the first time that you actually encounter a xenomorph, they pounce on you and make your camera clip into the floor texture. I mean, look at this. This was a AAA title, guys. This had millions of dollars invested into it, and this is what we got. On top of that, the facial animations for the characters are not even there. They're just stone-faced throughout any of the conversations that you are supposed to even care about. They might as well be T-posed and facing each other. That's how pointless it feels. This is even more reinforced since the story is barely even interesting. This game got a lot of hate back when it was first released, and I can see why. I know that Gearbox and Sega went through some legal trouble because of this game. What they were advertising and what they delivered to the public for the full price of $60 was not even comparable to what they had promised. It's clear that this is unfinished and should have never been released, or at least had a lot more time put into it. Fortunately, we have a better game called Alien Isolation. Don't even spend the dollar on Aliens Colonial Marines. Spend it on Isolation. There are some blemishes of a decent game here, but it is just game over for this storyline and product.